Rain tapped harshly against the cracked windows of the rundown apartment, where Eliza Monroe sat by a broken heater, wrapping her thin coat tighter around her frail body. The apartment, like much of her life these past years, was cold and unforgiving. Her 8-year-old daughter, Maya, coughed lightly in the background as she scribbled on a worn-out coloring book, its pages already filled and creased. Eliza had once lived in a nicer neighborhood. She was once married. She once had dreams, an aspiring interior designer with a portfolio full of promise. But life had unraveled fast. A car accident that claimed her husband's life. Medical bills that spiraled out of control. Jobs lost when employers saw too much baggage. And now, barely making ends meet, Eliza was reduced to stretching rice and beans into a week's worth of meals. Maya's asthma medication was running low, and Eliza's food stamps had just reset for the month. She pulled a crumpled shopping list from her bag, full of essentials she couldn't put off any longer. Flour, milk, eggs, cough syrup. Eliza didn't want to go to Bridges and Coal Market, the new upscale grocery chain in town, but the local budget mart was closed for renovations. Bridges was the only place within walking distance. She had no car. Still, she refused to feel ashamed. She was doing the best she could. "I'll be back soon, baby," Eliza said, kissing Maya's forehead. "Keep the door locked. Only open for me." Maya nodded and offered a small smile, her innocence shielding her from the weight her mother carried like a backpack of stones. Bridges and Coal Market was the kind of store that smelled of freshly baked croissants and overpriced perfume. Every shelf gleamed. Every employee wore matching uniforms with crisp collars and name tags. But beneath the sheen was a culture that worshipped affluence and judged quietly, but harshly. Eliza entered with cautious steps, rain dripping from her second-hand coat. The receptionist by the entrance gave her a glance and immediately frowned. A young employee, Tommy, not older than 21, walked over, eyes narrowed. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone far from helpful. "I'm here to shop," Eliza answered quietly, gripping the shopping list in her pocket. Tommy didn't hide his judgment. Her clothes were faded, her shoes water-stained, and she carried a reusable shopping bag that had seen better days. She ignored the stares and moved toward the bread aisle. She picked the least expensive loaf, checked her list, and moved on. Every aisle she entered seemed to quieten. Customers, mostly upper-class locals in yoga gear or tailored suits, shifted aside like she carried disease. At the register, she began placing items onto the conveyor belt. The cashier, Claire, mid-30s and always eager to climb the managerial ladder, watched her with an expression caught between annoyance and disgust. Eliza handed her the EBT card. Claire sighed, loudly. Then came the words that would change everything. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Claire said, voice syrupy sweet and sharp as glass. "But we don't accept people like you here." Eliza blinked. "Excuse me? This is a high-end store. We can't have customers like you bringing down the experience for others." There's a food bank on 9th Street. People in line gasped, some out of shock, some in agreement. Someone even whispered, "Good. This place is going downhill." Eliza's hands trembled. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Claire leaned forward. "Please leave, before I call security." Back at home, Maya sat on the couch with a wool blanket over her knees, waiting for her mom to return. But minutes stretched into an hour. Then 2. When the door finally opened, Eliza looked like she had fought a battle and lost. Her coat was soaked through, and her shopping bag was nearly empty, carrying only a bottle of off-brand cough syrup she found at a corner shop. "I couldn't get the food," she admitted softly. Maya looked at her mother's face, pale, humiliated, hollowed out by something the child couldn't yet name. And in that moment, Maya said something that would echo into history. "Someday, Mommy, I'm going to buy that whole store, and you'll be the first person I invite inside." Eliza smiled weakly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Just focus on getting better, baby." But Maya wasn't joking, not even a little. Time passed, slow and merciless. Eliza picked up cleaning jobs, night shifts, and even worked as a part-time seamstress for a local tailor. She never remarried, never gave up, Maya grew into a brilliant young woman with a fierce mind and sharper determination. She earned scholarships, took online classes at night, graduated high school with honors, and set her sights on Harvard Business School. Despite their continued poverty, Maya flourished. But the memory of that day never left her. She never forgot the look in her mother's eyes or the tone in Claire's voice. At Harvard, she studied retail psychology, business strategy, and ethical entrepreneurship. She developed an idea for a revolutionary grocery chain, a place where no one would ever be judged by their shoes or their wallet, where food was quality but affordable and dignity came free with every purchase. She called the company Humankind Market, and she began raising funds, quietly, strategically, and with investors who, like her, knew what it meant to have come from nothing. 10 years later, Eliza Monroe, now 51, walked into a newly constructed store on the edge of town. It had just opened that week, replacing the now bankrupt Bridges & Co. Market. The once thriving franchise had folded after lawsuits, employee complaints, and a viral scandal that resurfaced, all tracing back to unethical treatment of low-income customers. The new store was warm. Music played gently overhead. Baskets of fresh produce greeted every visitor with signs that read, "Everyone deserves a seat at the table." At the center of the store was a grand mural. A woman holding her child in one arm and a shopping bag in the other, walking through a storm toward a glowing store. Tears welled up in Eliza's eyes. Then, over the intercom, "Attention all customers. We're honored to welcome our founder's mother, Mrs. Eliza Monroe, into Humankind Market today. She is the reason we exist. Please give her a warm welcome." Applause erupted. From a back office, now glass-walled and stylish but modest, Maya emerged in a tailored suit. She was still Maya, but sharper, grown, and powerful. She walked straight to her mother and embraced her. "You said someday," Eliza whispered. Maya smiled, tears brimming. "And someday is today." Maya worked harder than anyone around her. While others partied, she networked. While others vacationed, she drafted pitch decks. Her vision for Humankind Market wasn't just personal, it was purposeful. She had seen her mother cry not because of poverty, but because of humiliation. Maya understood that poverty was hard enough without being treated like you were invisible, or worse, like you were a stain on society. She vowed that Humankind Market would treat people with dignity first, profit second. She pitched to hundreds of investors. Many walked away. A few mocked her for being too emotional or not practical enough. But one man, Devin Yates, a social impact investor from Chicago, believed in her. "You're not just building a grocery store," he said during their first meeting. "You're building a revolution with price tags." That single check, $750,000 in seed funding, changed everything. Maya assembled a team of ethical supply chain experts, retail strategists, and urban planners. She even brought in an ex-employee from Bridges & Co., who had been fired for trying to give expired food to a homeless shelter. Everyone she hired had either lived poverty, fought poverty, or vowed to end it. She had only one non-negotiable clause in every contract. No one is ever turned away for looking poor. Meanwhile, the very place that had humiliated Eliza, Bridges & Co., was crumbling. Internally, the company was rotten. Complaints about racial profiling, rude staff, and discriminatory practices piled up. Former employees spoke out. One went viral on TikTok for revealing how staff were told to keep the store looking upscale by discouraging certain types of customers. The story made local news, then regional, and someone anonymous but very determined leaked a surveillance video from 10 years earlier. It showed a soaking wet woman in a faded coat being refused service. The caption? "This is what dignity denied looks like." Eliza had no idea the video existed. Maya had found it while researching for her business plan. She had kept it waiting. Claire, the same cashier who once told Eliza to leave, had risen in the ranks of Bridges & Company. She was now a regional store manager, managing 3 locations and supervising dozens of employees. But her promotion hadn't made her any kinder. She was known for being harsh, manipulative, and obsessed with maintaining the image of the store. She constantly reprimanded employees for welcoming the wrong crowd, and once made a single mother cry for trying to use coupons. But now things were shifting. After the viral video, foot traffic began dropping. Protests formed outside stores. Bridges and Co's founder stepped down in disgrace. Sponsors pulled out. Investors bailed. And as losses mounted, Claire was summoned by corporate. You're either part of the solution, they said, or part of the problem. For the first time, Claire felt something she hadn't in years. Fear. Determined not to lose her career, Claire pivoted. She rebranded herself as a social impact innovator. She began making PR appearances. She posted selfies handing canned goods to shelters. She started a podcast called Food with Compassion. It was all fake, of course, but it worked, briefly. That is, until Humankind Market launched its flagship store in the exact location where Eliza had once been kicked out. Maya had waited 10 years to buy that building, and she did it in cash. The day of the grand opening, the line wrapped around the block. News crews arrived. Influencers live-streamed. And in the middle of it all stood Maya, beaming beside her mother. Inside, the store was filled with technology that tracked inventory, reduced waste, and allowed customers to scan, pay, and go. No lines, no judgment. Every customer was greeted with a smile. Every worker was paid a livable wage. A week after the launch, Maya sat in her office going through resumes. The second location was already in development, and the company was growing fast. She froze when she saw the name. Claire Holloway. Her resume was polished, her photo professional, and attached to her email was a long message explaining how she had always been passionate about inclusive retail. Maya stared at the screen for a long time. Then she clicked reply. Claire showed up to the interview dressed like a tech CEO. Expensive heels. Designer blazer. Flawless makeup. She walked into the conference room expecting to speak with an HR rep or a low-level manager. Instead, Maya sat waiting. Claire paused, confused. I believe we've met before, Maya said calmly. Claire tilted her head. You look familiar. I'm Eliza Monroe's daughter. The blood drained from Claire's face. Maya folded her hands. Let me tell you what I remember. My mother came into Bridges & Co., soaking wet, with 5 essential items and an EBT card. You humiliated her. And now, you want a job at her daughter's company. Claire stammered. I didn't know. I was under orders. Maya raised a hand. This isn't a trap. I just wanted to see if you'd remember. And own it. Claire swallowed hard. I made a mistake. A terrible one. I've changed. Maya studied her. Have you? Claire nodded, lips trembling. Yes. Maya stood. Good. Then I won't deny you what you once denied us. Claire's face lit up, relieved. You're hiring me? No, but I'll help you. Claire blinked. You won't work here, Maya said, but I've arranged a donation in your name, $10,000 to the local food bank. They'll be offering job training. You're welcome to attend. It was not revenge. It was redemption, and it stung. 1 week later, Eliza stood in the middle of the Humankind Market Cafe section, sipping herbal tea and listening to a young couple chat about how clean and welcoming the store was. I feel like I belong here, one said. Eliza smiled. That single sentence was worth more than a mansion. She looked up to see Maya speaking with a school principal. They were planning food literacy classes for kids. Her daughter had not just survived. She had changed the entire landscape. Word of Humankind Market's origin spread fast. Journalists lined up for interviews. One asked Eliza, how does it feel to know your humiliation inspired a movement? Eliza paused, then said softly, sometimes life plants us in the dirt, but that's where seeds grow. Maya added, we don't shame people for how they enter. We celebrate how they rise. That line went viral. Bridges & Co. tried to recover. They rebranded, rehired, even attempted a merger. But the public had moved on. Customers flocked to Humankind. Other grocery stores adopted Maya's model out of necessity and dignity. Eventually, Bridges filed for bankruptcy. And the final irony? Maya bought their headquarters at auction. It became Humankind Academy, a training center for ethical retail professionals. Outside every Humankind market, engraved into the sidewalk of the entrance, is a brass plaque that reads, "We remember that dignity costs nothing, and yet it's worth everything." Eliza and Maya often walk the aisles together. They talk to customers, share recipes, give hugs. No one is turned away. Ever again. Success had its shadows. As Humankind Market expanded, Maya discovered that an early investor, Paul Grenville, a venture capitalist from her second funding round, had slipped a hidden clause into his contract. The clause gave him controlling interest if the company ever attempted to go public. And Maya had just announced plans to take Humankind Market nationwide. It was a trap. Paul had no interest in community upliftment. He wanted profit, and he didn't care how it came. He began pushing for changes. Remove unprofitable outreach programs. Introduce premium-only shopping hours. Terminate free nutrition classes. Maya was furious. "This company exists to feed dignity," she said during a heated board meeting. "You want to turn it into a profit machine that chews people up." Paul shrugged. "We can't help the world if we go broke. Time to grow up." But Maya had learned from her mother, when people try to take what's good and pure, you fight smart. Enter Joan Ibeek, a brilliant young contract attorney and the daughter of a former Humankind cashier. She had gone to law school using a Humankind scholarship. Maya handed her the contract. "Can you find a way out?" Joan grinned. "Let's flip the story." For 2 sleepless weeks, Joan dissected every word, every clause, every comma. Then she found it, a moral compliance clause hidden deep within the shareholder agreement. It gave Maya the right to challenge any stakeholder's authority if they violated the company's founding values. And Paul had just pushed for layoffs in food-insecure neighborhoods. It was enough. Maya stood before the board. On one side, Paul and his allies, armed with spreadsheets and profit projections. On the other, Maya, Joan, and employees from 5 stores holding written testimonials from customers whose lives had been changed. Maya laid out plainly, "This isn't just about selling groceries. This is about redefining retail. If we let greed hollow out our mission, we become everything we stood against." Paul scoffed. "Your compassion is charming, but it won't survive scale." Maya pulled out the contract, highlighted in neon yellow. "You violated the moral compliance clause. The board has the right to vote you out." And they did, unanimously. Later that night, Eliza called Maya. "I watched the vote online," she said. "I saw you stand tall." Maya laughed softly. "I nearly threw up." "I'm proud of you," Eliza whispered. "You're fighting battles I didn't even have words for." There was a pause. "Mom," Maya asked. "Yes, baby." "I still remember that day. You walked out of that store, but you never walked out of yourself." The mayor of the city called Maya 2 weeks later with a proposal. "Humankind Market has revived more than just shopping. You've restored hope. We want to name you City Businesswoman of the Year." Maya hesitated. "Only if I can bring someone on stage with me." When the ceremony came, Eliza walked up in a modest floral dress, standing beside her daughter as flashbulbs fired. Maya accepted the award, then stepped back and handed the mic to her mother. Eliza spoke just 3 words. "Don't judge people." The audience erupted in applause. Months later, Maya got a message. It was from Claire. But this time she wasn't asking for a job. She was asking for help. She had lost everything. No one would hire her due to her past. She was living in a motel, estranged from her children, and, unbelievably, she was now on food stamps herself. Maya didn't gloat. She invited Claire to a Humankind training center. "I don't have money," Claire said quietly. Maya responded, "Neither did my mother the day you kicked her out. But she had something more valuable, dignity, and she never gave it away." Claire broke down in tears. She enrolled in the program the next day. For a special episode of a documentary series on ethical businesses, Maya decided to go undercover in one of her own stores, dressed plainly, just like her mother had been years ago. No cameras, No entourage. Just her. She entered the store wearing faded jeans, an old hoodie, and carried a nearly empty wallet. The cashier smiled. "Good evening. We got buy one get one on pasta and fresh soup samples in the back." Maya almost cried. She bought a loaf of bread and left a $500 tip in the community donation box. No one recognized her. And that's exactly what made it beautiful. At a national conference on corporate ethics, Maya gave a speech titled, "The Thieves of Hope Were Neckties." She spoke of the time her mother was treated like trash because of poverty, and how corporations disguise cruelty in policies and profit models. Her speech went viral. Millions watched it online. The clip of her saying, "No one should need to look rich to be treated like a human," became a rallying cry for retail workers worldwide. Humankind's stock soared. But more importantly, copycat stores began popping up around the country. Some better, some worse, but all inspired by her mission. Maya wasn't territorial. She was grateful. One rainy night, Maya found a box in the back of her closet. Old letters from her father before he passed. In one letter, he wrote, "If Maya ever faces the world alone, remind her she comes from survivors. Remind her to build, not just to win, but to heal." She called her mother in tears. Eliza read the letter aloud over the phone. And for the first time in years, the rain outside didn't feel cold. It felt like a cleansing. Humankind Market launched a new tradition. Every store was required to have a wall of stories, a mural or gallery displaying real customer stories, handwritten or typed, about moments when kindness in the store made them feel human again. Eliza's story was the first one. It read, "They told me I didn't belong, but my daughter built a place where everyone does." Below it was a photo of Eliza and Maya hugging in front of the very store that once turned them away. People cried reading it. Some left flowers beneath it. One child pointed and said, "That's what I want to be when I grow up." And no one laughed. At the grand opening of Humankind Market's 50th store, this one in Detroit, Maya spotted a face in the crowd she hadn't seen in nearly 20 years. Jordan Reese. They'd been childhood friends before life tore them apart. Jordan's family moved away after losing everything in the housing crisis. Maya remembered how they used to split a single lunch during middle school and how Jordan had once defended her from bullies who mocked her worn-out backpack. They hugged like no time had passed. Jordan had grown into a calm, articulate man, working in nonprofit food distribution. He now oversaw farm-to-table programs that helped local farmers get fair prices while feeding low-income neighborhoods. And he had a proposal. "Let's join forces. You built the front end. I've built the back end. Together, we can rewrite the entire food chain." Maya nodded. Something in the universe had just aligned. One late evening, as Maya helped stock shelves during a surprise site visit, a woman entered wearing layers of mismatched clothing. Her face was tired, her eyes hollow. She looked almost haunted. She picked up a single apple and a loaf of bread. At checkout, she held out a wrinkled dollar bill. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I thought I had more." The cashier smiled and gently pushed the items back toward her. "They're yours. Take care of yourself." The woman cried on the spot. Maya stepped aside, letting the moment unfold naturally. Later, she told her team, "That right there is why we exist." At the Global Conscious Capitalism Summit, Maya was invited to speak as a keynote. Her speech was titled, "The Richest Store in the World, Where Everyone is Worth Something." She told the story of her mother being kicked out, not to shame the past, but to illuminate the future. "When my mother was denied food," she said, "she didn't just lose calories. She lost something more vital, respect. And yet, she didn't rage. She didn't retaliate. She raised me with grace so I could rebuild the table they kicked her away from." The crowd stood, applauding. The video went viral again. Even major competitors issued statements pledging to review and rebuild their customer dignity practices. Claire, once a symbol of shame, was now a mentor at one of Humankind Market's outreach centers. She helped women recovering from incarceration re-enter the workforce. She was quieter now, softer. She still carried guilt, but she carried it with purpose. During a panel event, she publicly apologized to Eliza. I'm sorry, she said, voice shaking. You were the moment I failed my own humanity. Eliza, dignified as ever, reached out and took Claire's hand. Now you're the moment you reclaimed it. It was a small gesture, but it healed a long wound. One night, tragedy struck. The original Humankind Market, the flagship store where Eliza was first welcomed back, caught fire due to an electrical short in the solar generator room. No one was hurt, but the building was damaged beyond repair. Reporters rushed to cover the story, expecting tragedy. Instead, they found a line of customers, rich, poor, old, young, standing outside with signs that read, "You gave to us. Now we give back." Volunteers formed human chains to clear debris. A retired architect offered free design services. A construction company pledged to rebuild at cost. Even competitors donated stock. Maya stood beside her mother, watching strangers become community. "This," Maya whispered, "is the store now." 1 year later, on the exact same date Maya had been denied groceries as a child, Humankind Market reopened its new headquarters and flagship, a beautiful, state-of-the-art building with sustainable architecture, free transportation routes, community gardens, and a small museum titled, "From Shame to Shelter, the Story of Eliza Monroe." The first customer through the doors? A mother, wearing a coat that had seen too many winters. She carried a child on her hip and a food voucher in her hand. The staff didn't ask her to leave. They gave her warm tea and a welcome home. Years passed. Maya's work reshaped food retail around the world. Dozens of countries adopted her model. She trained governments, advised the UN, and launched global initiatives. But every year, she returned to one thing. That list her mother had clutched the day she was shamed. Flour, milk, eggs, cough syrup, simple things. So she launched the Monroe Essentials program, offering free staples to every registered low-income household. Quietly, respectfully, no forms, no questions. And on the 20th anniversary of Humankind Market, she invited Eliza to speak once more. Eliza was older now, slower, but stronger than ever. She said, "The world judged me for looking poor, but my daughter made the world richer than they ever dreamed. And now, even the poor eat with pride." Humankind Market's 100th store featured a memorial wall made of steel and glass. On it were engraved 1,000 names, people whose stories had inspired the movement. At the very center, Eliza Monroe. She came for bread and left a blueprint. And beside it, Maya's name. She flipped the story. One night, a little girl stood outside a Humankind Market in the rain. She wore a threadbare coat. She had coins in her hand and fear in her eyes. A manager opened the door and knelt. "Sweetheart," he said, "you don't need money to come in here." The girl whispered, "My mom says poor people don't belong in places like this." The man pointed up at the golden sign above the door. It read, "Everyone belongs here." And when the girl stepped inside, history quietly repeated itself, only this time with open arms. To anyone watching, you never know who you're turning away. You never know what storm someone is walking through. And you never know who that poor person might become. So treat people with kindness, because someday they might own the building